Hello everyone, this is Sushma Singh and you are watching Booster Classes. Let's delve into a thought-provoking poem, A Roadside Stand by Robert Frost. This is a powerful social satire that unveils a stark contrast between the privileged and the underprivileged. This poem, through its narrative style, captures the struggles of the countryside people, their silent cries for justice, and the indifference of the wealthy. And yes, don't forget to subscribe to my YouTube channel for more insightful poetic explorations. Keep watching and keep learning. The opening lines of the poem paint a poignant picture of a small, neglected roadside stall and the struggles of the underprivileged seeking a fair livelihood. I have tried to break down the key lines of this poem for your better understanding. So let's look the very first line of this poem. The little old house was out with a little new shade actually creates a visual image of a modest old house with a newly built shade created beside a busy road by the people living in the countryside. And the line, a roadside that stand too pathetically pled, reflects the humble and desperate nature of the roadside stand. It would not be fair to say, through this line, the poet argues that the rural people are not merely begging for basic survival, such as dole of bread or any form of charity, rather seeking fair economic opportunities. Their desire to earn some money, they want actually that they should earn some money and earn some money through dignity and labor, not by any charity. And the expression, the flowers of the city, suggests the prosperity, beauty, and vitality of urban areas. The flowers of the cities actually sustained by wealth generated from countryside. However, this wealth does not return to support the countryside, leaving villages to sink and wither in neglect and deprivation. And this line reinforces the poem's central theme of economic disparity and social injustice. The expression, the polished traffic, refers to the modern sophisticated vehicles or people in them and the busy, fast paced lifestyle of the city. The refined and the rich people who passed by the roadside stand with mind ahead, suggesting self-focused urban world where people are preoccupied with progress and do not take time to notice or appreciate the simpler, slow-paced rural life represented by the roadside stand. This symbolizes the interference and lack of connection, empathy between urban dwellers and rural communities. Next few lines, you will find the poet criticizing urban people who ignore rural struggles. He says that if city dwellers happen to notice the roadside stand, they do not express any concern or sympathy. Instead, they criticize it for spoiling the scenic beauty with its mismatched signboards. The phrase artless paint highlights the contrast between the simplicity of the countryside and the artificiality of urban existence. When, when the rich people decline to buy fruits and vegetables from the roadside stand, the poor vendors feel dejected and angry. And in their frustration, they tell these passerbys to keep their money and live without further bargaining and comment. Frost, the poet, very clearly clarifies that his concern is not merely about the roadside stand spoiling the scenic beauty, just like the country's rural people, but more importantly about the unspoken sorrow and misplaced trust of the rural people. The complaints of the affluent travelers about the stand seem hollow, petty, and infuriating to the poet. The poet criticizes their indifferences. They as they fail to recognize the farmers' hard labor in nurturing their produce and the struggles they endure to sell it. Through the poignant depiction of the humble roadside stand and its hopeful yet helpless owner, the poet conveys deep sympathy and compassion for the poor marginalized. Now, in the poem, you will find the poet expressing his sympathy for poor farmers who depend on the roadside stand for survival. Trusting sorrow is a metaphor for the emotional pain and silent hope of the roadside stand's owner. They have put up the stalls of local goods to seek financial support from the city people to sustain their livelihood. Because according to them, only city money can change their lives and bring about positive change in their existence. The rural people at roadside stand hope that this financial support they can achieve the glamorous, carefree lifestyle often depicted in movies and media. But if the city people were in such a hurry and were so selfish that they would not stop, it just meant that those luxuries would forever remain out of reach for these people. They are filled with sorrow when party in power, even the government, remains indifferent to the demands of the rural people. This also suggests that the promises of progress and prosperity are being withheld from countryside people. Whereas you will find that they are always promised a new relocation plan for these poor villagers who are termed as pitiful kin is in the offering always. In the pretense of giving them the comforts of the urban life, these simple folks will be forcefully removed from their land and made to live near theatres and malls within the city limits. No one bothers to take their consent, nor to study how disoriented these people will feel in their new habitats. This move actually signifies a loss of independence as they no longer need to think for themselves. Using sharp irony, the poet refers to politicians and rich people who plan to remove their property as greedy good doers and beasts of prey. Though they claim to uplift the poor, they are in reality selfish exploiters who impose supposed benefits while stripping villages of their autonomy. These people pretend to be generous, but actually they manipulate and use them for their own gain. And just like flies, they swam over their lives to cheat them for their calculated profit. Their only job is to befool the innocent rural people and mint money. While they initially flood the villages with money, the long term impact remains always questionable. Rather than true empowerment, this financial support fosters dependency, eroding their traditional self sufficiency. The poet laments how this artificial comfort disrupts their natural rhythm, once marked by honest labor and peaceful rest, ultimately leading to their complete decline. Finally, you will see that the poet deeply empathizes with the rural people's unfulfilled hopes, expressing disappointment at their endless yearning. The phrase, childish longing in vain, reflects the simple, innocent hopes of the roadside stand owners, which remain unfulfilled, emphasizing the emotional burden of their constant struggle for financial stability. The sadness that lurks near conveys the quiet despair of these villagers as they wait anxiously by their stand, hoping that passing city dwellers will stop and make a purchase. However, their suffering goes unnoticed. Cars speed by without halting, and even when they do stop, it is rarely to support their sellers. Some inquire about prices without buying, Others pull in only to take a U-turn, ruining the farmer's grass, and some merely ask for directions. One driver even stops for petrol, oblivious of the fact that the stand does not sell it. The unwillingness of the city dwellers to stop and engage meaningfully symbolizes the deep disconnect between urban affluence and rural hardship, highlighting the indifference of the privileged towards struggles of the underprivileged. In the final stanza, you will find that the poet expresses his deep despair over the unfulfilled hopes of the countryside people, acknowledging their lack of progress and financial struggles. Poverty, along with the apathy of the wealthy, has left their spirits dampened and isolated. Their ongoing hardship highlight the persistent economic disparity where the poor remain trapped in misery while the rich pass by in comfort. And overcome with this frustration, the poet wonders if an immediate end to their suffering, perhaps even through mercy killing, would be a kinder fate than their daily struggles. However, he soon questions the morality of his thought, asking himself whether he would accept such an offer. The poem ends on this open ended reflection, urging readers to consider the true value of life, even amid suffering. The tone conveys deep pity, ultimately affirming that life, despite its hardship, holds greater worth than an escape through death. Talking about the key theme of this poem, you will find that the poem Roadside Stand highlights the stark contrast between urban prosperity and rural struggles, exposing the deep divide between the haves and the have-nots with both clarity and compassion. The poem also represents the uncaring nature of the city dwellers towards the countryside hardship, emphasizing their disregard for rural communities. And finally, the poet talks about the need for economic and social justice. Tone of this poem is predominantly melancholic, reflective, and sympathetic, showing the sorrow and struggles of rural poverty and how society ignores it. Whereas talking about its style, the poem is generally written in rhyme scheme of A B A B, whereas the first few lines rhyme A followed by BC ADC. What makes this poem so vivid and powerful? It is the masterful use of poetic devices, from metaphors and symbols to personification and many more. All the literary devices actually deepen the poem's emotional impact. Each device enhances the portrayal of the rural people's longing for a better life and the stark indifference of city dwellers. So take a close look at this slide and explore how these poetic elements bring the poem's theme to life.